YouTube says it has had enough of vaccine misinformation on its site.
And false stories from phony sites to run circles around major news outlets.
Many people don't know the difference between something real and something created to deceive them.
Open your eyes.
If you've ever had this feeling that something was terribly wrong with the world that we live in, but you couldn't figure out just what it was, then you've come to the right place. Secret societies, mystery religions, and the Illuminati have been controlling our reality since the beginning of time. But not anymore, because there is an awakening happening, and you are about to become a part of it. Wake up, because this is a call for an uprising.
This is a call for an uprising. Welcome to today's show. Our friends at the New World United Nations have come out and told us that we need a new era of social media integrity to stem misinformation. And thankfully, all of our friends / scumbags at the United Nations are letting us know that they have a blueprint in place to censor these awful, rotten conspiracy theorists who are exposing their disgusting, disturbing agendas about how they can control your lives, how they eventually want you to date kids, and you know what. So I'm going to get into it in a minute. Just want to remind everybody again, I'm going to have to keep doing this because the amount of views I'm getting and the amount of people subbing to the channel is pretty heartbreaking, but I'm not going to be uploading here much longer. So if you like this video, you like this content, my new channel is linked below. Pause the video now. Please make sure you subscribe to it. It's called The End of the Beginning. There will be new content on there starting in a week, but I guarantee you that this video will probably not be up in a week. So you might want to sub now instead of saying, whatever happened to that guy? At least sub. You don't have to watch all my videos, but please. And at the very least, if you don't want to sub, which you should, which is free, it's easy, go to my website, join the website, or go to free videos on my website and submit your email. That way you can get email notifications of all my videos and where I'm uploading. I highly recommend it as we come close to Agenda 2030, which is now Agenda 2025. So please subscribe now. The New World Order, the United Nations, sorry, I got tongue-tied there, has openly come out and discussed the problem in this world and the struggle that they're having to, well, control the world is disinformation and hate speech. And I couldn't agree more. There is a ton of disinformation out there. CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, brain freeze. There's a ton of disinformation out there. And they're telling us it's spreading like wildfire, both online and offline. Wouldn't it be great if online media platforms started censoring people? Oh, wait a minute. I don't even know what's going on. Oh, anyway, the United Nations is apparently telling us that hate speech and disinformation is stopping their plans to take over the world. Take a listen to the United Nations themselves telling you how they have a blueprint in place to stop all of these bad people out there who are getting real information out there.
Digital platforms are being misused to subvert science and spread disinformation and hate to billions of people. This clear and present global threat demands clear and coordinated global action. Our policy brief on information integrity on digital platforms puts forward a framework for a concerned international response.
So this healthy, wonderful, pot-faced human being named Antonio Gutierrez is talking about how we need to censor online more because the last thing we want is anybody actually exposing things like the carbon footprint and the New World Order and all these agendas going on. I don't know anybody that's been censored personally here on YouTube for getting the truth out, but I'm sure there are lots of good people that need to be censored here on YouTube and Facebook and Instagram and anywhere else. So the UN chief is calling for a coordinated global action on disinfo, hate, and artificial intelligence. The proliferation of hate and lies on digital platforms and the threat that artificial intelligence can become an uncontrolled monster demand coordinated global action. That's interesting because who are the ones who are letting artificial intelligence become an uncontrolled monster? Oh, they are. They are. What he just said there is inverted, right? The proliferation of hate and lies. You mean censoring truth and allowing the hate of only one specific group of people. So yeah, I agree. We need to stop the hate speech against Christians and the censorship against Christians, but we know what he's really talking about here. So they want a coordinated global action starting with a code of conduct for governments, tech companies, and advertisers that promotes truth and protects human rights, according to the UN chief, which he said this past Monday. Secretary General Antonio Guterres said he plans to appoint a scientific advisory board in a few days and an advisory board on AI in September to prepare initiatives that the UN can take. I agree, this is very needed. It's as if this isn't already in place, by the way. I love how they openly are discussing this like it's not in place, you know? Like our government doesn't own and work with big tech. You know, people are like, oh, you know, what about the Twitter leaks and all this with the CIA? The CIA doesn't, you know, isn't giving orders there. The CIA is running it. These are intelligence operations, social media. That's what they are. They've been behind Facebook and behind Twitter and behind Google for quite some time now. But again, Gutierrez says that we need to do something about it immediately, and he plans to appoint a scientific advisory board. Now, you heard him talk about science and people questioning scientific data. Yeah, that was a real problem. Remember when all those people were questioning all that scientific data that was coming out? Man, what horrible people. Imagine if they didn't do that. Imagine the amount of lives that could have been saved. I'm just heartbroken about some of the misinformation that's out there. So Gutierrez told the news conference he plans to consult widely on the just released principles for the UN Code of Conduct for Information Integrity on Digital Platforms, which he'll issue before next year's UN Summit of the Future. Now, we all know that eventually you won't be able to upload or post or Facebook or anything online without having a digital ID. It's just the way that it's headed. They're doing things and saying things like this to get people conditioned into getting a digital ID. And people are just like, oh, what's the difference between having a physical license and a digital ID? That, you know, they're so brain dead, they don't realize that everything about them is going to be inside of this digital ID, which of course is going to be inside of their body because it's going to be in their DNA. And only they'll be able to access it, wink, wink. Right? And they'll say, hey, you know, when we scan your retina or use your thumb, you know, then we'll be able to tell it's really you and it's not somebody pretending to be you. It's all digital. You don't have to worry about people taking your identity online. You see where all this stuff goes? It comes from, if you didn't see the video I did on Robert Downey, you know, talking about getting hacked, like it's some big deal that somebody hacked his Instagram account for 5 minutes. I mean, they're conditioning people into a digital ID, which is indeed a part of the mark of the beast. These things are all going to tie together inside of your body. It is going to be your genetic code, your DNA that is altered and manipulated. So again, we're going to have a code of conduct for information integrity, right? So what are they going to do next? Well, it's probably going to be imprisonment for people that speak online, and then, of course, it's deemed disinformation by the never-elected NATO board, right? The New World Order. None of these people elected, of course, but they're allowed to dictate our lives, just like the WHO and everybody else. They can dictate what we do, what we say, where we go, how we have to, you know, take care of our own families and our own bodies when it comes to certain things, of course, because it affects everyone else, wink, wink, right? It affects everyone else. So they're the ones in charge. And then, of course, the moronic society we live in, who has been so watered down, so feminized is the word, I guess the males have been, so just baited into weaknesses beyond weaknesses, right? And by that I mean the notion of what is hate speech, right? They come out and they just started saying, well, hate speech is somebody using a certain word. See, the whole thing with the certain word that begins with an N, that they've, you know, pushed over and over, instead of saying, like, who cares, it's just a word, they've beaten it into people's heads that if, like, you say something like that, you should, you know, oh, it's horrible, you should be canceled, and then it continues down, down, down until eventually imprisonment, right? The same with a certain word for a certain group of people who enjoy Hershey Kisses, right? Say that word, oh, eventually imprisonment. This is about taking away speech. It's not about protecting certain groups. It's about protecting them and censoring what people can and can't say. And this is what we're seeing now. Oh, hate speech. How does hate speech affect NATO and NATO's plans? Could somebody tell me? Oh, because they're going to use hate speech and misinformation to go against anybody who speaks against the climate agenda. And by speaking against it, I mean exposing what it really is. Chemtrailing, geoengineering, HARP, CERN, the carbon footprint, which will monitor and track your every move, you know, but we're all just conspiracy nuts, right? And these people just want to silence us because we're just a nuisance to society because we're so insane, right? And then, of course, you know, they've been tweeting about this stuff too. Hate speech and disinformation could spread like wildfire. You mean the ones that you started? Excuse me. Did I say that? Sorry. Both online and offline. We all have a part to play in stopping it in its tracks. Amplify facts, call out disinformation, and educate yourself and others to say no to hate. So tying disinformation into hate, isn't that incredible how we've gotten to that point? Aren't those two completely different things? Hate being like you call someone a name versus disinformation being giving out information that Big Brother deems false, which would mean anytime, anyone with common sense, anytime you hear somebody censored for disinformation, you should immediately understand that they're telling truth. But unfortunately, most of society is too busy wondering who's going to play Batman in the next Batman movie, or, oh, who's dating who in Hollywood, that they just believe everything that these monsters say until it's too late, of course, as we've all been warning year after year after year. We've all been deemed right every single time for the most part. All of us have. We've all seen it coming. It's in their playbook. You look at Agenda 2030, which is, the United Nations, right? NATO. And what happens when you read Agenda 2030? Oh, you see that all the things that are occurring are actually all tied into it and all are part of an agenda, right? Yeah, it makes perfect sense. So he says we're dealing with a business that generates massive profits, and we're dealing also in some situations with governments that do not entirely respect human rights. So this is a constant battle. You know what? I know a YouTuber who doesn't have his human rights respected, isn't allowed to earn, isn't allowed to say what's on his mind, isn't allowed to point out the obvious. So you guys got that right. You are not entirely respecting human rights, but unbelievable, these people. They're such sleazeballs too. Like they can't even battle you, and have debates, right? This is what we see with the Democratic Party, right? They refuse to even have debates, which just shows you like they're flat out telling you it's a dictatorship, it's communism, right? They're flat out telling you that, but yet people don't realize why they don't want to have debates, right? Because they easily could be defeated. But in today's society, instead of actually going, let that guy have a difference of opinion, we've gotten to the point because people are so sensitive that people aren't allowed to have a difference of opinion. People aren't allowed to speak against Big Brother. And then they say, they don't respect human rights. Yeah, you don't really respect any of our rights at all. Literally, not even our bodies. But then they invert that, of course, to my body, my choice. And they convince women out there that it's not murder to murder. So the co-founder of Global Project Against Hate and Extremism agreed that while, give you a very global project against hate and extremism. Oh, let me guess, white Christians, huh? Agreed that while it's a positive step that the UN is calling for international solutions to this global problem, its code of conduct won't likely be sufficient to stop the torrent of false and hateful information online. The fact of the matter is that voluntary codes, including the company's own terms of service on these issues, have failed to rein them in. Oh yeah, they're doing such a bad job of that. The problem for the UN is they can't do what it seems is going to have to be done to deal with this problem, which is basically legislation. Gutierrez said there are many initiatives underway, including a law and code of conduct in the European Union for its 27 member nations and a UK summit on AI safety in the autumn, in the fall. Other governments are also looking into forms of regulation. And again, that won't be canceling things and terminating things. That'll be putting you in prison, fining you, these types of things. And again, the only way they'll really be able to regulate this other than using fear tactics like this, which they've already been using, is to have the digital ID, because anyone with a brain probably wouldn't get a digital ID and would stay far away from it and get to know the Amish pretty quick, or try to if they let you in. So again, other governments are looking into legislations, but he said there's a view that regulation isn't easy because things are moving very quickly and therefore a global approach is needed. Gutierrez said a key problem is that the tech company business model prioritizes engagement over privacy, truth, and human rights. So, of course, right, it's just about engagement. If it was about engagement, they wouldn't suppress so many people who are popular or, at least get a lot of views and help them generate revenue, which is how businesses are supposed to work. But in a communist government, of course, it's state-run business. It's not freely run, enterprises. So he said tech companies need to understand that massive profits can be created at the expense of a model of engagement that goes before any other consideration. And pretending as if these tech companies care at all about money is funny, because it's all about control. And these people print money and they give them to these tech companies, and they don't even need to have a model in place of how to make money, because if they did, then none of these businesses would go woke, because they'd realize they go lose money. They go broke, as the saying goes, right? They'd realize, hey, well, if we're going to censor people, we're going to lose a lot of viewership, which means we'll lose a lot of money. 20 years ago, they'd fire somebody who'd say, what, lose money? That's all you need to hear to go, don't you even think about it, we'll throw you out, right out the door. Oh, now it doesn't matter about revenue, right? Oh, we're gonna throw 20,000 people off of YouTube because they're talking about things that we consider conspiracy theories, tinfoil hat craziness. Oh, and we're going to lose $1 billion. If you were the CEO, you go, who cares what they say? Let someone have a difference between $1 billion. People actually like to watch that stuff. Yeah, okay. Why don't we get more of it? No, instead now they just go, who cares about the money, right? Let's get everybody in a rainbow tee and we'll put them in the trending section and force it down everyone's throat and think that everybody's thrilled and happy about it, right? Yeah. The UN chief said the code of conduct will not be a solution, but it will be global, and it will enable governments, tech companies, advertisers, and others to commit to what needs to be done in order to guarantee, or at least to seriously promote, information integrity in digital platforms. I love how they go, it will be global. As it, aren't we here in America? We're supposed to be a free country, right? Nobody elected Gutierrez and his three chins to any type of power over any of us and to give authority over any of us, right? It's supposed to be a republic, but of course we obviously know it's not. But you would think that somebody might say, who elected Gutierrez, who elected Gates, who elected Bezos, who elected any of these people that seem to dictate how we live our lives and continue to butt their noses into how we live our lives, right? And continue to tell us that we can't drive gas-powered cars, that we need to kill cattle and poultry and never farm again, et cetera, eat cockroaches. Yeah, it sounds nice. My response to Gutierrez and Gates are ladies first. I'm a gentleman. Let's see you live that way for about 15, 20 years. And then maybe I'll consider it then. Probably not, but why don't you show us? Lead by example. Oh, okay. Yeah. We all know why you won't. So for governments, it seeks commitments not to respond to misinformation, disinformation, or hate speech by blocking legitimate comments, shutting down the internet, or banning platforms or media outlets. And again, for governments, it seeks commitments not to respond to misinformation, disinformation, hate speech, by blocking legitimate comment, shutting down the internet, or banning platforms or media outlets, and to guarantee protections for journalists and independent media. For companies that control digital platforms, it seeks a pledge to be transparent about their algorithms. Stop it. Oh man, is this guy a stand-up comic? This guy really needs to get on the road. I'd love to see him at the Improv. Advertising and how they deal with misinformation, disinformation, and hate speech, and to eliminate double standards that allow hate speech and disinformation to flourish in some languages and countries while they are prevented more effectively in others. Tech companies are also, you mean countries like ours that have free speech? Oh boy, if it's getting banned in China, it better get banned in America, right? Wait, what? Now how does that work? We have free speech here. That's a communist nation. You're not allowed to question the government there. Oh, right, because this is also a communist nation because we sold out to China and we're in debt to China. Right. Oh, man. Tech companies are also urged to give people greater choice over the content that they see and how their data is used. Gutierrez said a commitment sought from digital platforms includes urgent and immediate measures to ensure that all AI applications are safe, secure, responsible, and ethical and comply with human rights. Are you mentioning anything about AI as far as, AI like being able to kill people? Like the story that came out about the drones killing people. Are we worried about that? Oh, no. Right? You're worried about the algorithm being able to control people more. Gotcha. He said the United Nations will try to be in the center of all the networks and movements that will be created to deal with AI technology as it develops. I don't know about that. Has anybody elected again? Why are they trying to be at the center of the net? We don't want you at the center. In fact, we don't even want you to have any power. We want you to lose your suits and go maybe serve lattes at Starbucks. That suits the academia brain cell capacity of these people who are running the United Nations because they're only there because they're demons who are obsessed with Satan and Lucifer making sacrifice, and now they're doing his bidding. But he said the United Nations, again, is going to try to control everything to deal with AI tech as it develops. It also requires the commitment of the platforms themselves and of the AI creators themselves. But we will do our best to be a platform where everybody can be together in order to make this agenda advance positive. What agenda? Gutierrez? What agenda is he talking about? Oh, the agenda I just read, sorry. You mean the agenda to censor free speech? Oh, right. Which is a part of Agenda 2030, of course. And we call it hate speech because sensitive people who have been bullied before, instead of defending themselves or saying something back, are all for protecting, all believe in the hate speech because they don't want anyone to say anything to hurt their feelings. But if somebody, if they didn't like something someone else did, well, it's fair game for them to say whatever they want, especially when they see Christians, they can say whatever they want, right? We see Christians who are outside abortion clinics protesting and just reading the Bible, we see what happens to them. But if you do that outside of a school where there's a guy wearing a thong in front of your kids, well, we'll arrest you. But if we see a trans person outside of a church holding pride flags, throwing eggs at the door of the church, and of course, putting 666 on the doors, well, what we'll do is lend a helping hand, right? We'll join in on it, right? We won't arrest them. We'll join in. We'll even go inside and spray paint 666 right on the, right on the walls for you. Yeah, because that's how this whole thing is working, right? It's pretty amazing, isn't it? So the United Nations is going to throw their hand into the mix. Why not? But the funny part is that we already know that they're the ones who are behind all of it. I mean, the United Nations is the New World Order. So, this video will probably get a strike, but I don't know. I'm not really a popular YouTuber because I'm not really good at this. I'm new to it. That's the only reason I don't really have any subscribers or anything. Not because censorship or, promoting truth. So anyway, folks, this is the world that we're living in. Complete sociopaths, psychopaths who are obsessed with all of us. I mean, I'd be flattered, but I mean, this is like borderline stalking, right? Like, it's nice if somebody has a crush on you, a safe, healthy crush. Like, I really like you. You're cute. You're like, oh, thank you, right? Well, this is beyond that. This is like stalker. This is like you get up in the morning and you're at the bottom of your bed is somebody that you aren't really sure about standing there staring at you holding flowers. You wonder how they got in your home. You wonder who they are. And they just go, can I make you breakfast? And you're like, who are you? Hi, right? That's your response. Well, that's Big Brother. That's the UN. They want to be the creepy stalker that lives inside your home, that sniffs your underwear and does everything else disturbing that you could possibly imagine. So I appreciate the crush part. If you guys had a little crush and you're like, I don't like these, these kind of people. Oh no, this borders on the psychotic, really. I mean, these people, if they weren't the United Nations, you probably see all of them. Well, they already should be on true crime or any of those crime shows if you actually saw what they did behind closed doors. But that's another story for another day. So would everybody in the White House. I thank everybody for being here. Can't wait to get a strike. God bless you and your families.